Joel's goddess drove under the influence and hit someone. He immediately took her away from the scene. Because he was a lawyer, thoroughly familiar with the law, he helped his goddess fabricate the appearance that she fled out of fear. Then the next day, after she sobered up, he would take her to turn herself in, while also contacting the victim's family, hoping to obtain their forgiveness. What he didn't know was that the person his goddess had killed was me, and he was my only family member. Chapter 1. Joel. I hit someone, what should I do? At 1:30 a.m., Mimi called Joel in tears, asking for help. Joel was shocked, but quickly regained his composure. Don't move, and don't call the police. Wait for me. Okay. I'll wait for you. Joel arrived at the scene 20 minutes later. Mimi grabbed onto his clothes like she had caught a lifeline. She cried beautifully, like delicate petals drenched in rain, as if she were the one who had been struck dead, and not the woman lying on the ground, her body mangled into an unrecognizable mess of blood and flesh. You've been drinking? Joel caught the smell of alcohol on Mimi, a complicated look flashing through his eyes. Joel was a lawyer. He understood the law like the back of his hand. He knew very well the punishment for causing death by drunk driving. He had always been upright and impartial, upholding justice, unafraid of power and unmoved by money. But at this moment, he hesitated. He turned to glance at the victim lying on the ground, having been run over directly by Mimi's car. The body had been crushed into pulp, especially the head. Nothing remained but a mixture of blood and brain matter, completely unrecognizable. So Joel didn't realize that person was me. I was clearly still wearing that blue dress he had accompanied me to buy last time, but I should have known long ago. Joel had never truly cared about me. If he didn't care about anything related to me, how could he possibly remember what I was wearing today? I watched as he calmly surveyed the surroundings. As a battle-hardened lawyer, he had long developed a sense for counter-investigation. This was a dim, remote alley. There was no one around. No traffic lights. No pedestrian crossing. No surveillance cameras, and even one of the streetlights nearby was broken. I saw a flash of confidence in his eyes. It was the same look he had every time he was about to win a case. He had probably already figured out how to help Mimi get away with it, even if it meant betraying his own conscience and principles. He said, "Leave first. Once you sober up, I'll take you to turn yourself in." "Will I go to jail?" Mimi asked nervously. He answered without hesitation, "No." Chapter 2. No? So even after death, the heart can still feel pain. And it hurts, so much. Unbearably so. Before Joel took Mimi away, he told her to remove the memory card from the car's dashcam and destroy it completely. Of course, he had to eliminate the evidence in advance, so he would never see the truth. My soul floated above, forced to follow Joel as he left the scene. As I drifted away, I looked back at my body. Beside it, a container of seafood porridge had spilled all over the ground. It was something I had packed for Joel, because he said he would be working overtime tonight, and I was worried he might neglect to eat or rest. I had specially come here to buy his favorite porridge to bring back to him, but he didn't even spare it a glance. Joel took Mimi to an empty beach. After telling her not to wander around, he hurried back home. The house was pitch dark. In the past, no matter how late it was, I would always leave a dim light on for Joel, but he didn't notice anything unusual. He went straight into the walk-in closet, found one of my dresses, and left with it. At the moment he picked it up, his body seemed to pause for a second. I didn't know what he was thinking, but it didn't matter, because the next moment, he left without looking back. He didn't even check the bedroom to see if I was there. He quickly returned to the beach and had Mimi wash herself in the seawater, then change her clothes. The smell of alcohol on her body would raise suspicion from the police. He also prepared a lot of bottled water for her, helping her sober up and dilute the alcohol in her system. After all that, at 10 a.m., Joel drove Mimi to the police station to turn herself in. On the way, they kept rehearsing their statements. Joel instructed her, "When the police ask why you fled, say you were scared after hitting someone. You've never experienced anything like this before, so your instinct was to run. Say that after the accident, you went to the beach, alone, and stayed there the whole night before finally gathering the courage to turn yourself in. Say you only called me before coming to surrender, asking me to accompany you to the station. As for why you were near the scene last night, Say you were having dinner with a friend. You didn't drink. I've already coordinated the story with your friend. If the police contact her, she'll testify for you. After finishing, he added, leave the rest to me. His tone gave Mimi a complete sense of security. At that moment, I saw Mimi's eyes redden again. She said, Joel, thank you. What would I do without you? Joel replied firmly, you won't be without me. Floating above them, listening to their conversation, I suddenly laughed until my heart, lungs, and everything inside me ached. 10 years of wholehearted devotion. In the end, it couldn't compare to a single glance from the woman he truly loved. Joel and Mimi had been childhood sweethearts, once a perfect match made in heaven. Later, Joel's family fell into decline and moved to a small county town, while Mimi's entire family emigrated abroad. The disparity in their circumstances and the distance between them forced them apart. I met Joel in college and fell in love with him at first sight. I had never seen a man more handsome than him. But what captivated me even more was the gentle heart hidden beneath his seemingly cold exterior. I had seen him feeding stray cats. The warmth in his eyes was something I had never seen before. As if he were bathed in a holy light. I followed him for 4 years, yet never dared to confess my feelings. On the night of our graduation dinner, he suddenly asked me, you like me? I was stunned. Then my face flushed red. The whole university probably knew I liked Joel. How could the person involved not know? He had simply chosen to ignore it. I have nothing right now. If you're willing to struggle alongside me, we can start dating, Joel said, under the flickering lights. I couldn't see his expression clearly at the time. I also didn't know that Joel had a woman he loved but could not have. I thought it was finally my turn to be favored by fate. I was an orphan. From the moment I was born, I had been abandoned again and again. I had never felt warmth, nor had I ever been lucky. Only Joel made me feel that the world could be kind to me. Chapter 3. I stayed by Joel's side as he rose from an unknown, insignificant lawyer to owning his own firm and becoming a household name. But the journey was anything but easy. Joel had once nearly been hacked to death on the street over a case. He had also gone 3 days and nights without sleep for another. He even risked his life infiltrating a criminal organization alone just to gather evidence. During all this, his health worsened. His stomach, in particular, had long been ruined by his own neglect. To take care of him, I chose to resign from my job. I used to be a social journalist, back when we had just graduated and Joel had nothing. It was my salary that supported both of us. But my job required frequent travel, and we could hardly see each other. After Joel was rushed to the hospital with a gastric perforation, I made up my mind to give up the career I loved. I don't know if it was my sacrifice and meticulous care that moved him. After winning a major case, in his joy, he took the initiative to propose to me. I could also feel that Joel's feelings for me were gradually deepening. He would even go shopping with me when he had time. He would pick out dresses that I liked, until Mimi returned to the country and completely shattered the peaceful and beautiful life of our marriage. The first time I learned about Mimi was on my birthday. I had cooked Joel's favorite dishes and was waiting for him to come home so we could celebrate together. But I waited all night. By the time the food had gone cold, Joel finally returned, slightly drunk. I wasn't angry. I knew he had many social obligations. I understood how hard he worked. I was even worried whether his stomach would be irritated. After all, it had taken me 3 whole years to nurse his stomach back to health. I carefully helped him onto the bed. At that moment, I heard him murmuring something under his breath. At first, I didn't understand what he was saying. The next day, I went to Joel's law firm to bring him porridge, to soothe his stomach and help him recover from the hangover. That was when I saw Mimi in his office. She was fashionable, tall, elegant, and beautiful. She greeted me proactively, like the lady of the house. She said, "You must be his wife, right? I'm Mimi. Joel and I grew up together. I've been overseas all this time. I just came back yesterday." So the Mimi Joel had been murmuring last night was not the Mimi I had imagined. I had thought he was drunk and had gone to feed stray cats again. Later, I wondered, he liked cats so much, was it because Mimi sounded the same as his goddess's name? That day, Mimi added me on WeChat. She said she had just returned to the country and wanted to make more friends. She said the porridge I made was delicious, and that Joel was truly lucky. After that, I often saw her posting moments on WeChat, little snapshots of her life with Joel. Whenever Mimi called, no matter how late or how busy Joel was, he would go to her immediately. He said, "Mimi is afraid of the dark. Her place lost power. I'll go keep her company." He said, "It's Mimi's birthday. She doesn't have many friends. I'll go support her." He said, "Mimi is sick. She's alone here without family. I'll go check on her." Countless times, Joel left my side because of Mimi, but every time, he would say, "Don't overthink it. There's nothing between Mimi and me." And every time, I would convince myself the same thing. There was nothing between them. But now, seeing everything with my own eyes, I realize how ridiculous I was. And how pitiful. Chapter 4. Joel and Mimi arrived at the police station. The moment they walked in, they heard officers discussing last night's accident. The person who reported it was a small restaurant owner. He said he recognized the victim's dress. She came late last night to pack some food. Said it was for her husband. One officer said, "Her husband has stomach problems. Only their porridge doesn't upset his stomach. But it's been a whole night, and her husband still hasn't reported her missing?" Another officer said, "The victim's face is completely disfigured. We can't identify her at all. Her phone was crushed beyond recognition. Even the SIM card is broken. We can only wait for phone recovery or DNA testing." Still haven't caught the driver? Someone asked. "We're still pulling surveillance footage from across the city." Another officer replied, "Honestly, the driver is pretty skilled, managed to avoid all traffic cameras perfectly. Like they just vanished into thin air." Could it have been premeditated? One officer speculated. "We'll have to wait for the forensic report. Once we confirm the victim's identity, we can investigate further." Hearing their conversation, I saw Mimi trembling all over. Of course, Joel noticed her fear. He reached out and held her hand tightly, comforting her. "Don't be afraid." Mimi nodded. The two of them walked in together. "We're here to turn ourselves in," Joel said loudly. Everyone in the station looked at them. Joel continued, "The driver responsible for last night's accident, Mimi." The officers immediately stepped forward to verify Mimi's identity and brought her into the interrogation room. Joel waited outside. My soul was still bound to him, forced to follow wherever he went. I didn't even know if this was some kind of punishment from fate. Someone like me, blinded by love, didn't even deserve reincarnation. At that moment, he walked over to a police officer and asked about the victim. "I heard just now that no family member has come to claim the body yet?" The officer glanced at him. Joel took out his lawyer's license. The officer no longer concealed anything. "No, we're still waiting for DNA verification." "Didn't you say the victim went to buy porridge for her husband?" "She didn't go home all night. And her husband didn't report it?" "Who knows?" The officer said with a hint of sarcasm. "There are plenty of heartless men in this world. Maybe her husband is off with another woman right now. Nothing surprises us anymore." Joel nodded. He had handled too many cases. This kind of thing wasn't unusual to him. He said, "I'm the driver's lawyer. Once you contact the victim's family, please inform me immediately. We will do our best to obtain their forgiveness." Floating above them, I couldn't help but laugh. He still didn't know. He was the victim's family, and the only one at that. Of course he would forgive Mimi. After briefly asking questions, Joel went back to wait for Mimi outside the interrogation room. Once Mimi finished giving her statement, she was supposed to be criminally detained. Fleeing after causing a fatal accident constituted a criminal offense, but Joel provided a guarantee for her. Using his years of connections within the system, he quickly secured her release on bail pending trial. That very night, Mimi walked out of the detention center. "Joel, can you come to my place?" After Joel drove Mimi home, she asked pitifully, "I'm scared to be alone." Chapter 5. I won't go tonight. Joel refused. That surprised me a little. I had always thought he would never refuse Mimi. "Go home, take a shower, and change your clothes," he added. So it turned out, he just thought he was dirty, afraid he might smell bad in front of Mimi. "Then, can you come keep me company tomorrow?" "We'll talk about it tomorrow," Joel said. "These next few days, I need to help you organize materials for the trial. By the way, I asked at the station today, the victim still hasn't been claimed by any family." A flicker of something unusual passed through Mimi's eyes. But Joel didn't suspect her at all. He continued, "That means the victim probably didn't have a good relationship with her family. That's very favorable for us. Once we get in touch with her relatives, as long as the compensation is sufficient, your case will be very easy to handle." "Thank you, Joel." Mimi's eyes reddened again, deeply moved. Who wouldn't be touched by such devotion? Even I, floating above, felt moved by Joel's deep affection for Mimi. After sending Mimi home, Joel returned to the house. It was still pitch dark. It was only 9 p.m. Normally, I wouldn't have gone to bed this early, but Joel still didn't notice anything unusual. Just how little did he care to ignore it to this extent? I watched as he, looking somewhat tired, took off his coat and walked toward the fridge. As he opened it, his gaze paused for a moment. He seemed to notice the sticky note I had left on the fridge. "Don't drink cold water. Your stomach isn't good. Be good and listen, okay?" I had even drawn a little smiley face on it. Joel's hand paused on the fridge door for a second, but he still opened it. I smiled faintly. When had he ever listened to me? The fridge opened. Inside was a small cake. On it were the words, "Happy birthday, my husband." Only then did I remember. Yesterday was Joel's birthday. Even though we had a small argument in the morning, when I heard he would be working overtime that night, I still went to buy his favorite seafood porridge. It was my way of making peace. I didn't want his birthday to be unhappy, but who could have expected that I would die? Joel must be happy, right? Now he could be with Mimi without guilt. I watched as Joel stared at the cake for a long time. It took him a while before he seemed to recall that yesterday had been his birthday, and that he hadn't come home all night. He closed the fridge door and finally decided to look for me. Turning toward the bedroom, he called out, "Daniela, I haven't had dinner yet. I'm hungry." In the past, the thing I feared most was hearing him say he was hungry. Whenever he got hungry, his stomach problems would flare up. So every time, I would drop whatever I was doing and immediately prepare his favorite dishes. But tonight, the only response he received was endless silence. "Daniela." Joel's voice grew louder. He had never been patient with me. Still receiving no response, Joel became irritated. He strode toward the bedroom and flung the door open. "Is this really necessary? I didn't come home because I had things to do. Why are you getting more and more unreasonable?" He still didn't know. I wasn't in the bedroom at all, and I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I was just dead. Suddenly, I felt a little curious. When he finds out I'm really dead, what kind of expression will he have? Indifference? Relief? Or would there be even the slightest hint of emotion? Chapter 6. Joel froze for a moment. Because I wasn't in the bedroom. Under normal circumstances, at this hour, I would definitely be at home. Even if I were sulking, I wouldn't go anywhere, because I had nowhere to go. After confirming that I wasn't in the house, he finally picked up his phone and impatiently called me. A mechanical female voice came from the phone. "Hello, the number you have dialed is powered off." Joel didn't even wait for it to finish. He hung up immediately. His expression darkened. He turned toward the fridge, took out a bottle of cold mineral water, and almost as if deliberately going against me, gulped down more than half of it in one go. The moment he finished drinking, I knew his stomach would start hurting. He clutched his upper abdomen, pain causing sweat to form on his forehead. He fumbled around for medicine, but after searching for a long time, he didn't even know what to take. After all, I had always prepared everything for him before. He was practically incapable of taking care of himself. Frustrated, he threw the medicine box onto the floor. Then he picked up his phone again. After hesitating for a moment, he dialed a number. The call connected, and the voice on the other end sounded uncertain. "Joel? Is Daniela with you?" Joel asked, suppressing the pain in his stomach. A few cold laughs came from the other side. "You're calling me to ask about Daniela?" The one who answered was Flora, my college roommate. "Aren't you two friends?" Joel said coldly. "Friends?" Flora laughed even more sarcastically. "You still remember that Daniela and I are friends? Then why did you refuse me when I asked for your help?" "I handle things according to legal procedures, fair and impartial," Joel said righteously. I almost laughed out loud. Fair and impartial? Back then, I truly believed he was upright and incorruptible. When Flora's younger brother was detained for fighting and she begged Joel to help smooth things over, he refused outright. I was put in a difficult position, but I didn't blame him, even though it led to me and Flora, my only friend, cutting ties. But now? Not only could he use his connections to help Mimi, he could even fabricate evidence against his own conscience. He wasn't noble, he just refused to taint his so-called purity for my sake. Right. Of course, Lawyer Joel is a man of justice. How could people like us ever be worthy of your help? Flora said mockingly. That's why I already cut ties with Daniela long ago. Didn't she tell you? Joel said nothing. He didn't know anything about me at all. He didn't know that Flora was my only friend. He didn't know that back in college, when everyone looked down on me for chasing after him, Flora was the only one who supported and encouraged me. But because of him, I lost her. I understood Flora. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to accept that my best friend's husband refused such a small favor either. I knew Flora didn't hate me. It was just human nature. She couldn't pretend everything was fine and continue being my friend. Joel, I don't know what's going on between you and Daniela, Flora said sharply. But I want to tell you this, if you truly let Daniela down, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. You have no idea how much she sacrificed for you. My relationship with Daniela is none of your concern, Joel said, his face dark. Flora let out a cold laugh. She really wasn't worth it. With that, Flora hung up on him. Chapter 7. Joel's face darkened completely. He threw his phone onto the sofa, then got up to look for the medicine kit again. The pain must have become unbearable. This time, he forced himself to carefully read the instructions on the stomach medicine before taking a few pills. After a while, his complexion visibly improved. He picked up his phone and sent me a message. Daniela, if you're done throwing a tantrum, come back. I'm very busy. I don't have time to deal with your little moods. Looking at what he typed, my heart turned cold. He wasn't worried about whether something had happened to me. He only blamed me for wasting his time and affecting his mood. Yesterday was his birthday. When he was about to leave in the morning, I told him I would celebrate with him that night. He had been looking down at his phone the whole time, texting, not even hearing what I said. I leaned over and glanced at his screen. I saw his conversation with Mimi. Mimi was wishing him a happy birthday. He was thanking her. Then Mimi invited him to dinner that night. I couldn't hold it in and raised my voice slightly. Joel. He froze for a moment and turned to look at me. Come home early tonight. I'll wait for you so we can eat together. I have a case that might run very late today. You don't need to wait for me. Joel refused directly. Is it really a case running late? Or is it because Mimi wants to spend your birthday with you? I asked bluntly. Joel's expression changed instantly. He said, Daniela, how many times do I have to tell you? There's nothing between me and Mimi. Stop making something out of nothing. Nothing? If there's nothing, why do you rush over the moment she calls? The words I had held in for so long finally burst out. I've already explained, she's alone here without anyone to take care of her. So you have to take care of her? What are you to her? In what capacity are you taking care of her? Joel, don't forget, you're a married man. Enough. Joel's face turned cold. If you won't listen to my explanation, then think whatever you want. He walked out immediately, not caring at all how hurt I felt in that moment. That night, I saw Mimi's post. She was having dinner with other friends. Joel wasn't there. Only then did I realize that Joel really did have a case to handle. He wasn't with Mimi after all. Because I had misunderstood him, I felt a little guilty and self-blaming. In this relationship, I had always been the one in the lower position. So whenever we argued, I was always the one who gave in first, let alone this time, when I was the one in the wrong. So I called Joel's assistant. The assistant said it would probably go on until 2 or 3 in the morning. By then, Joel would have already eaten dinner. So at 1 a.m., I went out to buy him seafood porridge, thinking that after working overtime, having some warm porridge would make his stomach feel better, and we could also eat cake together and blow out the candles. I even deliberately changed into that dress he had picked out for me. But I died beneath Mimi's wheels. And he was doing everything he could to clear her of all guilt. Chapter 8. That night, I didn't come back. nor did I reply to Joel's messages. And he didn't ask about my whereabouts again. After taking his stomach medicine, he cooked himself a bowl of noodles. It had been too long since he last cooked, perhaps it didn't taste very good. He only took a few bites before putting it down, then went back to the room to shower and sleep. My absence had no real impact on him. Early the next morning, he got up and went straight to the study to organize Mimi's case. I saw the evidence he prepared. First, the street was too dark at night, and one of the streetlights was broken, affecting Mimi's visibility while driving. Second, there were no traffic lights, so she couldn't notice a pedestrian suddenly rushing out. Third, the accident happened at 1:30 a.m., a time when the streets were almost empty, which affected the driver's judgment. Fourth, the forgiveness of the victim's family. When I saw the word forgiveness, I couldn't help but laugh. How could he predict the future so confidently? Fifth, Mimi was a girl, timid by nature. It was understandable that she fled immediately after the accident. It was not an attempt to evade responsibility. Sixth, Mimi voluntarily turned herself in. Joel spent the entire day organizing everything. He meticulously prepared every piece of evidence that would benefit Mimi. That evening, Mimi finally couldn't hold back and called him again. She had actually sent him messages earlier, but Joel had declined, saying he was busy organizing materials. "Joel, are you done?" Mimi asked pitifully. "More or less." "Then, can you come keep me company? I really don't dare to sleep alone." Mimi said, "I didn't sleep at all last night, and I haven't slept all day today either. Every time I fall asleep, I have nightmares." Joel glanced at the time, then touched his stomach. "I'll come after I eat dinner. Why don't you come eat at my place? I don't have an appetite eating alone." Joel hesitated for a moment, but still agreed. "I'll be there soon. I'll wait for you." Joel shut down his computer and walked out of the study. His gaze drifted toward the bedroom, and his grip on his phone seemed to tighten slightly. But in the end, he turned and left. He was waiting for me to give in first. Just like always, Joel drove to Mimi's house. Mimi was wearing pink pajamas, looking rather haggard, but if you looked closely, you'd notice there was something subtly revealing about them. With just a slight bend, her figure was fully exposed. At that moment, she was crouching down to get Joel a pair of slippers. Mimi warmly pulled Joel to sit at the dining table. She said, "I ordered takeout. Let's eat together." Joel looked at the dishes in front of him. Everything was covered in chili, and frowned slightly. He couldn't eat spicy food. It would trigger his stomach problems immediately. Didn't Mimi know that? Or was it that, for her, Joel could endure anything, adapt to anything? And what exactly had I been deceiving myself about all this time? Love, or the lack of it, was always obvious. "Why aren't you eating?" Mimi asked Joel. "Not to your taste? These are all my favorite spicy dishes." "It's not that." Joel shook his head. "I'm just not very hungry." Mimi picked up food for him, saying he was too thin and needed to eat more. Joel endured it and still ate. He would probably never know that my favorite food was also spicy. Chapter 9. Has the police station contacted the victim's family yet? Mimi suddenly asked. No, Joel hadn't eaten much in the end. He took a sip of water and said, "Looks like the victim really didn't have a good relationship with her family. Otherwise, after being missing for 48 hours, someone should have reported it already." Mimi nodded. Her lowered gaze concealed a trace of panic. "When we eventually contact the family, combined with the evidence I've prepared, at most you'll get a 1-year suspended sentence," Joel said. "Don't worry, you won't go to prison." "Joel, I really don't know how to thank you," Mimi said, her eyes reddening. Joel hadn't even responded yet, when Mimi's hand had already rested on his. Joel froze for a moment but didn't pull away. Mimi said, "I don't need you to take responsibility." As she spoke, she guided his hand toward her waist, floating above. I watched this pair of shameless lovers. They probably had no idea that even after death, my spirit still lingered. If only I could scare them to death. Just as I thought everything would naturally progress, Joel pushed Mimi away. "Mimi, don't do this," Joel said. "I'm married. I know. I don't care. The only one I care about is you. But I care. I don't want you to be judged and looked down on. For you, I'd do anything back then. If my parents hadn't forced me to go abroad, I wouldn't have left you, and now that I've come back, it's only for you. Mimi looked at him with deep affection. I'm sorry. Joel still refused. He didn't even give Mimi another chance. He left her house immediately, quickly, perhaps afraid he might change his mind. Honestly, whether Joel and Mimi ended up together physically or not didn't surprise me. If two people truly loved each other, it was only natural. If they didn't, it was merely Joel's moral boundary, or perhaps he didn't want to wrong Mimi. After all, being the other woman was something that could never stand in the light. Joel returned to his car. His breathing was slightly uneven. He clutched his stomach, clearly in pain, but no matter how much it hurt, he wouldn't show it in front of Mimi, enduring the discomfort. He drove home. The house was still pitch dark. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought I saw a trace of disappointment in Joel's eyes. Probably just a mistake. The next moment, I saw him calmly take his stomach medicine. After the pain eased, he went to the bathroom to shower, then lay down on the bed. He didn't care whether I came back or not. What he cared about was simply that there was no one left at home to take care of him. Late at night, I thought Joel had already fallen asleep, but suddenly, he sat up and took out his phone to call me. If I hadn't seen how clear his eyes were, I would have thought he was sleepwalking. Of course, no one answered the call. He sent me another message. Daniela, stop being stubborn and come home. The cake is still here. I'll eat it with you. It was rare. Joel was lowering himself for me. Even though his tone was still harsh, it was already unprecedented. Was he really giving in? Or was he just waiting for me to come back so he could divorce me? Clearly, Mimi was already running out of patience. Chapter 10. The next day, Joel received a call from the police station. They told him the victim had been identified and asked him to come down to the station. He immediately informed Mimi, come downstairs in 10 minutes. I'll pick you up and take you to the station. We've contacted the victim's family. Contacted them? Mimi sounded surprised. After all, she knew very well that Joel was my only family. Joel quickly picked her up. On the way to the station, he kept explaining how she could gain the family's forgiveness. I saw the way Mimi looked at Joel, like she wanted to say something but kept holding back. In the end, she asked, will the family really forgive me? Trust me, they will, Joel said with confidence. Of course they will. I was absolutely certain of that. The two of them walked into the police station. An officer led them into a mediation room. Joel asked, where is the family? The officer simply looked at him. Joel felt confused. Suddenly, the officer asked, have you seen your wife in the past 2 days? Why are you suddenly bringing her up? Joel sounded irritated. As a lawyer, he should have been sharp and perceptive. But when it came to me, all he had was impatience. You just need to answer my question, the officer said sternly. I haven't seen her, Joel replied. We had a small argument 2 days ago, and she left home. But what does that have to do with today's case? Aren't you a lawyer? The officer said, his tone laced with sarcasm. In that moment, Joel seemed to realize something. The officer didn't keep him guessing and said directly, after DNA verification, we've confirmed the victim's identity. The deceased is your wife, Daniela. Joel stared blankly at the officer, disbelief filling his eyes. Who did you say? Your wife, Daniela. The officer handed him the identification report. Joel opened the file. Inside were photos of me at the time of my death, my face completely unrecognizable, and that blue dress, soaked in blood. No, impossible. How could it be Daniela? Panic began to appear in Joel's eyes. His hands were shaking. His whole body was trembling. His eyes suddenly turned red. Caught completely off guard, I floated above, watching coldly as Joel seemed to be grieving. Why should he be sad? Wouldn't this make things perfect for him and Mimi? Wouldn't this mean they could easily gain the family's forgiveness without lifting a finger? So what was he sad about? And who was this performance for? The facts are right in front of you. You are now the victim's only family member. How you choose to settle this is up to you, the officer said coldly. I'll take your statement. Joel covered his face with both hands. Through the gaps between his fingers, I seemed to see liquid slipping out. Joel was actually crying. Crying for me? Maybe. He was crying tears of relief. Mimi stayed by his side the whole time. Only after his emotions stabilized a little did she speak. Joel, I really didn't know the person I hit was Daniela. By the time I realized, she was already lying on the ground, completely still. I really didn't know it was her. If I had known earlier, I'd rather it had been me who died. Chapter 11. Joel slowly lowered his hands. His eyes were so red it was frightening. He stared at Mimi, his gaze icy and terrifying. Mimi seemed startled by the way he looked. Her voice trembled as she spoke, almost breaking into sobs. Joel, you'll forgive me, right? You said the family would definitely forgive me. Now you are the family. She reached out to grab his hand, but Joel suddenly shoved her away. Unlike the gentleness he showed last night, this time he nearly knocked her to the ground. Mimi was completely shaken. The officer frowned. Calm down. This is a police station. Joel turned and walked straight out. He didn't give Mimi any chance to reconcile. He just ran out. Mimi hurried after him. Behind them, I heard an officer say sarcastically, "She's already dead. Who are you putting on this act of devotion for?" Honestly, that officer spoke exactly what I was thinking. Outside the station, Mimi chased after Joel desperately and grabbed onto his clothes. Joel, don't be like this. You're scaring me. Let go of me, Joel said coldly. I know you're hurting. I'm hurting too. I'd rather it had been me who died than Daniela. But you just told me, once someone is gone, they can't come back. The living should look forward. That's the greatest comfort for the deceased. Mimi cried as she spoke. Joel probably didn't expect that the very words he taught her would be used against him. I said let go of me. Joel's face twisted with fury as he threatened her. Mimi was clearly frightened. She had probably never seen this side of him before. I won't let go. Joel, I won't. If you really won't forgive me, I'll go turn myself in again right now. I'll pay Daniela back with my life. But my feelings for you, I'll never let go. With that, Mimi turned and started walking back toward the station. After just a couple of steps, Joel grabbed her, floating above them. I almost laughed out loud at the scene. How could Joel ever truly bear to let Mimi get hurt? At that moment, Mimi looked at Joel with hopeful eyes, her voice soft enough to melt. Joel, give me some time. I need to calm down. With that, Joel got into his car and drove off. He went straight home. After losing control for a brief moment at the station, Joel was now completely composed. There was no more sadness on his face, no expression at all. For my death. A few minutes of grief was apparently enough for him. Now he simply stared blankly at the ceiling. After a while, he got up, walked to the fridge, and took out the birthday cake. He ate it alone, slowly, methodically. My death truly had no impact on him. Why would I ever expect anything from his reaction after learning I was dead? Joel stayed at home for half the morning. In the afternoon, he went back to the station and claimed my body. After the autopsy, the body was even more unbearable to look at. I watched as Joel stared at it coldly, at me lying there in the morgue, broken and ruined, completely unmoved. Then he called Mimi. They returned to the mediation room, and this time, right in front of the police, Joel signed the forgiveness agreement without hesitation. The victim's family and the perpetrator finally reached a settlement. Mimi wouldn't have to go to prison. They walked out of the station. The sun outside was bright, blinding. Even as a soul, I couldn't open my eyes. The sudden light made tears stream uncontrollably. Joel, thank you, Mimi said, gazing at him with affection. Now that Daniela is gone, I'll take her place and take good care of you. Get lost, Joel suddenly roared. Mimi froze, her hand half raised, too frightened to touch him. I never want to see you again, Joel said coldly. Another lawyer will handle your case from here on. With that, he turned and left without looking back. I glanced back at Mimi. In her eyes, I saw something she couldn't hide, resentment and cruelty. The same expression she had when she ran me over. Chapter 12. Joel sent my body to the funeral home. The police handed over everything from the time of my death to Joel, including my repaired phone. In the memorial hall, there was only Joel. He hadn't notified anyone. It was just him, staying by my ice coffin. I probably wasn't worth the trouble of making a big arrangement. He suddenly took out my phone and began browsing through it. There weren't many apps on my phone, but I had a habit of writing a diary. I saw Joel suddenly open my notes. I panicked. I didn't want him to see. I didn't want him to witness my foolishness even after my death. But I couldn't stop him. I could only watch helplessly as he opened the entries. X year, X month, X day. I think I've fallen for a boy. He's so handsome. The way he feeds stray cats feels so warm. But he probably wouldn't like me, right? I'm so ordinary. X year, X month, X day. Everyone at school laughed at me, saying I was overestimating myself. How dare I reach for the top student from a law department? But I never wanted to aim above my league. I just wanted to stay by his side. X year, X month, X day. Because I liked Joel. My roommates isolated me. Only Flora stood by me. She said there's nothing wrong with liking someone. Everyone should be brave enough to be themselves. Flora is my first friend in life, and my only one. Having a friend feels so good. X year, X month, X day. The night of graduation. Joel said he could be with me. Has fate finally decided to favor me? If all the suffering and pain I went through was just to meet Joel, then it was worth it. And I'm lucky. X year, X month, X day. Joel's work hasn't been going well. It's okay, even if things never improve. I can support him. X year, X month, X day. Joel finally got a case. I'm happy for him. X year, X month, X day. Joel won the case. I'm happy for him. X year, X month, X day. Joel was hospitalized with a perforated stomach. It hurts so much. I want to take good care of him. X year, X month, X day. I quit my job, even though I loved it. I won't regret it, as long as it's for Joel. X year, X month, X day. My period is over 10 days late. I'm pregnant. I nervously asked Joel if he wanted a child right now. He said no. Without even a moment of hesitation, Flora accompanied me to get an abortion. Flora scolded me for being foolish. I just didn't want to become a burden to Joel. X year, X month, X day. Joel has become an incredibly successful lawyer. He has his own law firm now. He's amazing. X year, X month, X day. Flora's younger brother got drunk, got into a fight, and was detained. Flora asked Joel to use his connections to help her brother inside, but Joel refused. Flora said Joel didn't love me at all. No, Joel just has his own sense of justice. X year, X month, X day. Flora blocked me. I lost my only friend. X year, X month, X day. Joel proposed to me. I'm so happy. X year, X month, X day. We didn't have a wedding because Joel was too busy. X year, X month, X day. Mimi came back to the country, so Joel isn't cold to everyone. X year, X month, X day. Mimi said she and Joel were childhood sweethearts, separated by fate. She said Joel had always loved her. She told me to leave Joel on my own, but I refused, because Joel said there was nothing between him and Mimi. I believed him. X year, X month, X day. I don't know how long my trust in Joel can last. The way he treats Mimi is different. Very different. X year, X month, X day. Today is Joel's birthday, but we argued this morning because of Mimi. I misunderstood him. I'll apologize properly after he gets off work. Joel once said I look good in a blue dress. Will he like it? Chapter 13. That was where the diary ended. I saw Joel's tears falling, large drops, one after another. The suppressed sobs made him look utterly grief-stricken, but I didn't understand. What exactly was he suffering over? Guilt? But in the end, he still signed the settlement agreement for Mimi. So what did this kind of regret even mean? I floated calmly above, watching Joel. Aside from finding it a bit ironic, I felt nothing else. I don't know how much time passed. Joel's phone rang. I saw his emotions slowly retreat. So easily. All the sorrow he had for me vanished completely. Luckily, I no longer had any expectations of him. He answered the phone, sounding normal again. Hello, you're lawyer Joel, right? Who is this? I've got something interesting. As long as you agree to defend me for free and win the case, I guarantee this won't be made public. What are you talking about? You'll understand once you see it. The other side hung up immediately. Not long after, a friend request popped up on WhatsApp. Joel accepted it. The next moment, the person sent a video. Joel tapped on it. Watching that video, I couldn't help but find it a little ironic. Is this what they call justice catching up eventually? The footage showed. The moment Mimi hit me that day, it had clearly been recorded from the shadows. The video began with me being knocked to the ground by Mimi's car the first time. The pain made it impossible for me to get up. My only conscious thought was to beg for help. Help me, call an ambulance. Please, I can't die. It's my husband's birthday today. I still want to celebrate it with him. In the video, I was in unbearable agony. Mimi stepped out of the driver's seat. The panic in her eyes disappeared the moment she saw me. Daniela? I forced my eyes open to look at her, and saw the malice flashing in her gaze. Heh, she laughed. Cruelly. You brought this on yourself. Daniela. What are you going to do? I looked at her in terror. Joel loves me. It's only because he married you that he rejected me. If you die, Joel and I can finally be together. No, that's not true. Please don't kill me, please. Daniela. You can only blame your bad luck. After throwing out that cold line, Mimi got back into the car and drove over me again, crushing my head beneath her tires until it was completely mangled. Then the video showed Mimi crying as she called Joel for help. And then, Joel arrived. His entire focus was on Mimi. He quickly took her away from the scene. The video ended. I saw Joel's fists clenched tightly, but I couldn't read his emotions. Was he relieved that this video was in his hands, instead of being handed directly to the police? Joel's phone rang again. The voice on the other end said sinisterly, "As long as you agree to my conditions, I guarantee nothing will happen to the person you care about, and you won't end up as an accomplice either." Joel hung up immediately. He said nothing, and when he said nothing, it usually meant he had already agreed. It was just that his moral bottom line wouldn't let him say it out loud so quickly. Chapter 14. I saw him stand up from the ground. Then call Mimi. Where are you? At home. I'm coming over right now. Joel left my morning haul. He went straight to Mimi. The moment Mimi saw him, she threw herself into his arms. Joel, I thought you really didn't want me anymore. Joel didn't push her away. He just let her hold him as she cried miserably. After a long while, Mimi finally lifted her head from his chest. Her eyes were red and tearful, pitiful to anyone who saw her. Joel, you won't abandon me, right? Joel coldly pulled her off him. Then he said, "Did you really not know that the person you hit that night was Daniela?" How could I possibly know? I was completely terrified at the time. Mimi defended herself, looking innocent and pure, completely different from the cruel person in the video. I saw Joel suddenly laugh. A wild, almost unhinged laugh. Mimi was startled by his expression. Joel, what's wrong with you? Joel took out his phone and played the video for her. Mimi, is this what you call not knowing it was Daniela? Mimi's face visibly changed, turning pale, then flushed. She stared at the video in disbelief. How do you have this video? If you don't want people to know, don't do it in the first place. No, that's not it. Joel, it's not what you think. Mimi's tears streamed down uncontrollably. I did it because I love you so much. You love me too, don't you? Now that Daniela is dead, we can finally be together. You should be happy, right? Yes, Joel should be happy. Even I agreed with that. I know you only rejected me because you felt responsible for Daniela. Now that she's gone, we can be together. Joel, everything I did was for us, MMPH. Mimi suddenly couldn't make a sound. Joel had grabbed her by the throat, cutting off her voice completely. I saw the bloodshot fury in his eyes, utterly terrifying. Mimi looked at him in sheer horror, but at the last moment, Joel let go. How could he ever bring himself to kill Mimi? He just couldn't accept this ugly side of her. Joel, Mimi collapsed onto the ground, looking up at him pitifully. Have you forgotten everything we had? Trust me, soon we'll both forget about Daniela. Joel crouched down, staring straight at her, enunciating every word. I will never forget Daniela. No, Mimi screamed. Joel grabbed her by the hair and slammed her head against the floor. I just don't want you to die so easily. Joel, let me go. Let me go. If you kill me, you won't survive either. Who said I want to survive? Daniela is dead. What's the point of me living? I couldn't help but laugh. That was probably the biggest joke I had ever heard in my life. My death made his life meaningless? Did he forget he was the one who had just signed the settlement agreement for Mimi? Don't kill me, Joel. Please don't kill me. I don't want to die. I really did it because I love you, Mimi begged through sobs, just like I had that night. But Joel showed no mercy. I watched as he brutally beat Mimi, until her entire face was bloodied and disfigured. Yet even that wasn't enough to satisfy him. He grabbed her again and dragged her toward the balcony. This was the 22nd floor. A fall from here, there would be no survival, and it would be an ugly death. No, Joel, don't, please don't. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Don't kill me. Joel let out a cold, chilling laugh. When Daniela begged you, what did you do to her? I almost let you make sure she died without peace. You deserve to pay with your life. The next second, Joel let go. Mimi fell from the 22nd floor, with a loud crash. Blood splattered across the ground. The scene was horrifying. Chapter 15. Joel returned to my memorial hall. He had already changed out of his blood-stained clothes and washed himself clean. Standing in front of my ice coffin, looking at my body, he said, Daniela, I'm sorry. Sorry? But now, I don't care at all anymore. I don't care about your apology. I don't care about you at all. I actually did like you. Joel said, if I didn't, I wouldn't have married you. What we had was never just settling. Then what about Mimi? I only found it laughable. At this point, no matter what he said, I could hardly feel anything anymore. I admit, I really did like Mimi before. So when she reappeared in my life, I couldn't resist her coming on to me. But I never meant to betray you. Joel couldn't finish his sentence. Maybe he didn't even know how to justify himself, wanting both at the same time. Daniela, I regret it. I really regret it. I regret the way I treated you. I regret believing Mimi's lies. I regret that only now I've realized the person I truly loved was you. His tears fell onto my ice coffin. If I could come back to life, I would crawl out just to tell him to stay away from me. Don't stain my path to reincarnation. Daniela, I'll come join you soon. From now on, let's never be apart again, okay? Joel said tenderly. No! I shouted in refusal, but he couldn't hear me. If there is another life, I only hope Joel never appears in my world again. He would only dirty my sight. Not long after, the police arrived. They restrained Joel. He didn't resist at all. As he was taken away, he only said to my body, wait for me. I won't wait. I'll never wait again. I've waited enough in my last life. Yet my soul was still dragged along, following him unwillingly. I watched as he was handcuffed and led toward the police car. At that moment, a large truck came speeding down the road. Joel suddenly shoved the officer aside with all his strength and rushed onto the road. Screech! With the sharp sound of brakes, Joel was crushed beneath the wheels, even more gruesome than when I died. And at that moment, I felt my soul beginning to dissipate. So this was the condition. Only when Joel died could I finally reincarnate. But just as I was about to completely fade away, I suddenly saw Joel. He seemed to have become a soul as well. And he saw me. Like a madman, he rushed toward me. Daniela, please, don't leave me, please. I had never seen Joel so humble before. Who says there isn't a sense of satisfaction in this? But it doesn't matter anymore, because in the next life, there will be no Daniela.